Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's I Love Learning podcast. My name is Gina Anderson, and I am the CEO and co founder of Luma Brighter Learning. The purpose of this podcast is to really champion those who have overcome the impossible and really have experienced building a mind of a champion. And today on my podcast, I have Stefanie Beach, and she is going to be amazing, and you all are going to want to connect with her. She is the founder and CEO of SMB Media Consulting, and she has won many prestigious awards for her business, including the Women Owned Certified Business Award, the 2023 Inc. 5000 winner. And that's actually how I met Stefanie, is through our Inc. 5000 journey together. Stefanie, thank you so much for being here with me today. Why don't you tell the audience who you are and tell us what you're passionate about?
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here as well. I'm Stefanie Beach. I'm the founder and CEO of SMB Media Consulting. We are a full service digital media consultancy working with brands and helping them achieve their revenue goals through advertising. So we offer paid search, social, programmatic, SEO, email, ad ops, data, analytics, and more. So really, your complete service for anything digital if you're looking to get started. I'm really passionate about a lot of similar things that you are. I really enjoy learning, and I really enjoy, lifting others up and inspiring others to be their best selves and be happy with what they're doing in their jobs and in their industry. We were talking a little bit before this, and I'm involved in a lot of different mentoring programs, and I've always had teaching as part of my role in my job, and hiring junior talent and teaching them. And I feel like you have a little bit of an imprint as they kind of go off on their career journey. And I like having that little imprint on them.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to mentor and guide. And Stephanie, goodness, I mean, you started your company from scratch, and I mean, we all know, I know personally, that is no easy task, and especially when you're at a place that you may have found a roadblock or a hurdle, or maybe you don't know kind of where you're going to go. It's not like one day you wake up, right, and you say, "Hey, I'm going to be a business owner and a CEO of a company." And a founder, and I'm gonna just invent something. And so can you like kind of tell us about your journey, and maybe if there was a time in your journey that you hit a hurdle or a roadblock that kind of stood in the way of your passion that you have today?
Yeah. So, I never really set out to be an entrepreneur. I always said I wanted to own a business, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I didn't want it to be in media, but look at me now. Honestly, I started out on my own out of somewhat of a necessity. My daughter was going into pre-K at the time, real school. And I definitely wanted to work still, but felt like I was missing out on so much in her life. And, we decided that we weren't going to have any more children. So she was going to be our only. And I really just wanted to, you know, take in all of the time that I had with her. And so I had decided I was let go of a company.
Mm.
And, I was looking to leave them anyway. And so I was like, okay, let me use this to be a little bit picky in what I want and where I want to go. And I decided that I wanted to be 2 days a week from home.
Mm.
And at the time, this was the end of 2016, beginning of 2017, and working from home was not a thing. So I interviewed for almost a year and
Wow.
turned down 3 jobs because my first sentence was, I want to work and I want to work full time, but I want to be remote part time.
Mm.
I was willing to take a demotion, a pay cut, not manage a team, like do all of the things to allow for it. And I couldn't find anybody that would hire me that way. So I created it myself. My husband was just like, why don't you just consult full time? And it was almost like a light bulb went off. And so I started working and consulting with smaller brands that were looking to in-house programmatic or start up, a digital channel or didn't know what to do or how to do it. and it was me and one other ad ops person, and my company grew by the needs of my clients. As they asked me to take on more work or do different things, I onboarded people that would complement my service in, whatever their service was. And so SMB was kind of naturally born from that.
That's really inspiring. We're at a time, and this has been this way probably since the pandemic, which has now been 4 years ago, right? Where a lot of people are being laid off. People are unemployed. People are really trying to find their way, trying to find kind of what's next, or, how do I get there? And really for you, it sounds like one, you had the support of your husband. But what do you think it was inside of you that really helped you make that leap, or helped you overcome the fact that you were unemployed and here you were? Can you remember that, or was there a specific moment?
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, I I fell into freelancing kind of out of necessity, needing some work but still wanting to be flexible. And I think, you know, I'm not a person that gives up easy. I'm not a person, I think I've
Mhm.
always had it in me to take chances. I look at my daughter and um see some of, what she gets nervous about, or some of the things that, matter to them when they're so little, and you're kind of like, well, is that really a big deal, and I kind of feel as though I don't necessarily remember having some of those fears. Like if I wanted to do
Mm.
something, I did it. I didn't ever think, well, what if I fail at this? It was like, all right, let's try it and see what happens. And so I've always had a level of resiliency in me.
Mm.
As you know, being a business owner, it's not for the faint of heart. So if you don't like hearing no, like it's not a good thing either. Especially when you're hunting for clients, you'll get a lot of no's before you get that one yes, right? Um, but I think really wanting to change my lifestyle and being in control of my own calendar, and really being able to have that time to, as they say, women are supposed to be able to do it all and have it all, but really have that balance between, you know, being with my daughter, and being with my family, and doing what I want to do, as well
Mhm.
as also wanting to work and being able to do what I love outside of my family and my home. Um, and it's a hard challenge, and a lot of women make it seem very easy,
Mm.
but it's not. And it's also a big deal for me as building my career, my whole life working up to something. I kind of felt like, when else was I going to have the opportunity to not have an income, so I wouldn't
Mm.
necessarily be losing an income, right?
Mhm.
And being able to really take that chance. And, to put a kicker in it all, right when I decided to launch my business, I was offered a job that was
Oh,
remote, part-time,
wow.
it checked enough of the boxes.
Mhm.
And I remember looking at my husband, he was like, "So what are you going to do?" And I was like, "I'm going to do both." And
Yeah.
and I did for a little bit, and that was a little crazy because I'm trying to, be flexible and be home more. And I took on a part-time role while trying to launch a company.
Mm.
Um, but if it's not crazy, are you really having fun?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting, Stephanie. You talk about something that neuroscientists have found linked to our willpower. And what you're describing is a strong sense of willpower. And a part of our brain is called the anterior mid cingulate cortex, is really been correlated to when you don't want to do something. Like I get up in the morning very early and I don't want to do it and run. But when you do something that you don't want to do, this area of the brain actually gets bigger. And what the neuroscientists have found is that this area of the brain is actually tied to something that they're saying is really a willpower. And they've even
Mm,
gone so far to say it's tied to our will to live. And so, this idea of you going through this really difficult time of, not having work, looking for work, and going through this experience has probably strengthened your willpower. You mentioned you have this strong sense to go forward, and that's really tied to our neurons in our brains. So it's really interesting that you talk about that. um, I wanted to ask you, in your journey and every day, like what is it that keeps you happy and wanting to do what you do every day to keep moving towards this passion of helping people, mentoring, and really working in the marketing space?
I mean, we're not saving lives, so it's
Mhm.
nothing, groundbreaking, so to speak, but I do really enjoy the impact that we have on these growing businesses, helping them grow revenue, helping them get their brand out there. During the pandemic, during the Great Resignation, we started doing white labeling for other agencies and giving them, short-term solution. And like staff augmentation, flexible talent as well. And so being able to work with these other agencies, not only are we learning from them and growing with them as well, but we're alleviating stress and we're
Mhm.
saving their businesses from burnout and more people leaving and losing good talent and having to train more people and having clients leave because they're unhappy or the work's not getting done in a timely fashion or whatever that might be. So I feel through all of the facets of my business and all of the different, outcomes that we've evolved to over the years, it all goes back to the impact that we have on other people's day to day as well.
Mhm. Absolutely. Having an impact and leaving that is I think motivates a lot of folks, and I can appreciate that because it's why I get up every day, right? It's why we do what we do as founders and business owners. So I can appreciate that. Has there been a time in your life that like left an impact on your thinking and kind of changed the way you kind of viewed or your outlook on your passion or the way you wanted to move forward?
Um, so right when my business was starting to take off, because like you said, you don't just wake up saying I'm going to do this and you do
Mhm.
it and it's magically just a full company. You have to build, you have to grow. So after the first few years of kind of finding our niche and establishing ourselves, I came up with some health issues as well, and
Mhm.
so having to kind of combat that while still going through the business and growing and building, put more into perspective of, and then going through the pandemic at the same time
Wow.
was, still kind of put things in perspective of why are we doing this,
Mhm.
and why, I get up and do something that I do enjoy doing for work every day, but it is only work. And just remembering, and sometimes, I get caught up, and my husband will say the same thing too, like, remember why you're doing this.
Mm.
And, I always like to say, work smarter, not harder, and that you should be working to live, not living to work. And
Mm.
if you get up and do something that you do enjoy, that's just like a cherry on top. I think like 90% of the workforce doesn't like their job. So if you
Mm.
enjoy what you're doing, you're already go in the right direction. But then, being able to leave that and then enjoy your life even more and be with those that matter is really important. And, I think that having the pandemic, having these health issues, just having trials and tribulations of starting a business has really put into perspective of why it's harder, why it's even more important to move forward and, remembering what really matters in life and why I'm doing this.
Yeah, beautifully stated.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
sharing that. Absolutely. Yeah, it's not easy. Life's not easy. I mean, being a business owner and having to overcome health issues coupled with that, I can imagine. I mean, very tough. And through this, you have a team. I mean, you're supporting people, you're supporting your clients, and there's a lot of learning going on.
Mhm.
Learning how to grow a company, learning how to support your team. How does learning look like to you, and what does authentic learning look like to you? I study this topic a lot, and I like to get different people's input and perspectives on it, and what did they find valuable with learning.
So I mean, I do enjoy learning, and I feel like you're never done learning. There's always something more to learn, and there's always ways to improve. And A lot of what I do to continue learning is some of the normal things, reading trades and going to events and conferences and things, talking to as many people as possible, I feel is a really great way to learn. And part of that was also the launch of my own podcast, The Digital Marketeer, where I get to talk to a lot of different people doing different things, both within or related to my industry in terms of different technologies, how to use
Mhm.
those technologies, why they're built. So I feel like that's an aspect of me learning for my job. Um, and then just, I feel like my child teaches me things every single day about life. And just when you think you know what you're doing, she's like, nope, you really don't. Um, but, I think authentic learning is curiosity, asking questions, really being involved and giving your undivided attention to whatever it is that's happening around you to be
Mhm.
able to take it in and interpret it and then in a way kind of, you know, give it back out in whatever way that you can. And like you said, it does look different for everybody, which is really interesting. Um, but I feel like it's a core value that everybody has the privilege of having.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You mentioned this about giving your undivided attention as a learning scientist and theorist. Like it's interesting when people talk about multitasking because ultimately you have to have your complete attention to engage and to remember information. And so, like you said, to be able to have the opportunity to engage is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes people will come and talk to me and send me messages about how how do they go forward, like how do they move forward when they've lost their passion. We talk about learning, but what advice would you give to somebody that might say to you, well, I've lost my passion, I don't really know where to go or what to do? What would you say from your perspective of having gone through this journey that you've had, starting a company from nothing and growing it? What would you provide to them?
I think, there's a few things there. One, I think you might be a little burnt out and you need to take time for yourself and like unplug and step away and look at things from, a 20-foot view, um, and reevaluate. Because I think a lot of times we mistaken loss of passion for, fear of failure or loss of success. And we have in our head something that we've defined that we want to see. And when we don't see that, sometimes the disappointment takes over. So
Mm,
I think, doing something that makes you feel good and fill your cup and fuels creativity is important. It could be laying on the beach, listening to the ocean, reading a book, going for a massage, having a night out with your girlfriends, going on a date night, like whatever it might be. And maybe it's more than one thing, or maybe it's a vacation, or, whatever it might be, do that. Um, and do whatever it is that makes you feel good and fills your cup. And then I would say, the other thing would really be to make sure that, you know, you're surrounding yourself with people that bring you up.
mm,
And I think that if you're gonna be miserable, sometimes you surround yourself around miserable people and they continuously drag you down. But it's the people that really are your champions and your cheerleaders that will help you, take things to the next level and keep your passion going. Um, you know, it's it's hard because you want to kind of say, well, what started the passion to begin with? And sometimes it's so far down the road, you don't even remember. But I think doing something outside of that where you can clear your head and come back to it is really important.
absolutely. Definitely need those needed breaks, and for not only our mental health but our physical health too. So absolutely. Stephanie, anything else today that you'd like to share to our audience on my I Love Learning podcast, and share with everyone where they can find you, reach you, connect with you?
Yeah.
afterwards. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, I think always be curious, always ask questions, and, know when to ask for help and ask for perspective was also really, a good piece of advice in learning and continuing to learn. You guys could find me on LinkedIn. It's Stefanie Beach, Stephanie with an F. So it's Stefanie, beach like the beach, Beach. And you could email me at Stephanie at smbmediaconsulting.com or visit our website at smbmediaconsulting.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie, for joining me today.
Thank you so much. It was fun. I